Welcome to Time Capsule, where we explore the meaning of life in the 21st century through the eyes of people just like you and me. I'm Joerenz.
And I'm Joenrhuz.
And today, we have an award-winning actor, producer, photographer, acting coach, and co-founder of the Mighty Tripod, David Hogan. Welcome, David.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, of course. All right, so could you tell us a little more about what you do? And you take on so many different hats. Can you tell us what inspired you to take on all these different roles?
Well, I had to, right? I mean, I'm an actor in the Pacific Northwest, first and foremost, I suppose. And being an actor in a smaller market, at least as far as on-camera work, we're a great theater town. There's a lot of really wonderful theater here, and that's where I got my start as an actor. But as an on-camera actor, it's where I've kind of been focused the past 10 years. Jobs are not just falling off the trees. So I had to figure out, well, what's my side hustle? And for a while, it was dog walking and dog training. So for a while, I had my own business. I even got my wife involved for a while. So we had a really great dog walking business called David the Dog Walker. And then I had the sister business called David the Dog Trainer. And it was really great. And I absolutely love dogs. I'm a huge fan. Hold on, I have to turn off my heater. 1 second, it's right here. Stand by, and okay, there. See how easy that was? And I'm back. So I was doing the dog training business for a while. And then Angela and I don't know how the seed was planted, but at some point we realized that we wanted to teach. We really wanted to work with actors in our community. And so in 2012, we launched Mighty Tripod. At that time, it was just Mighty Tripod. Mighty Tripod Productions became the producing side of our business, because we needed to create our own work. Do it yourself. We can't just wait around and wait for our agents to call. We have to create our own work. And so we started doing that. And then we also launched Mighty Tripod Acting Studio. And the name was it came from our dog, Vida, she was an amazing dog. We rescued her in Los Angeles when we were down there, 2003 maybe. She eventually, she battled with osteosarcoma, which is bone cancer. And her rear leg, I think it was the rear left, we had to have it amputated. So she became a tripod dog, and she soldiered on, persevered for another 16 months. And that's where we got this idea of, when we were, creating a brand for our business, we really admired her strength, her courage, her perseverance, her tenacity. She remained joyful and happy, and she was mighty. So Tripod for Vida, mighty. She just felt like such a force, and that was the name for our business. It just really fit, because we're such dog lovers, and I wanted to stay connected to that side of my personality. So that's how it started. Actor, then actor teacher. I've always loved photography for the past 10 years. I love actors. I need headshots. I have an amazing wife who also is an actor who needs headshots. I'm like, honey, I got this camera. Can I practice on your face? Let me take pictures of you. Let's do this. Because I really just wanted to explore another way. Part of it was, people need to make money. I need to pay bills. But the other part was, I just loved it. I love taking pictures of actors. I understand how to help them make connections with the lens to make really great marketing images for their work. And so that's where it started, the headshot business. So I'm an actor, I'm a teacher, photographer, producer, and I do some producing. As I mentioned, do it yourself. You got to create your own work. So we started producing short films, but also we are now about to release our second feature film. It's called The Parish. We just got distribution recently with Uncorked Entertainment. It releases on March 16, so we're doing a ton of interviews right now. Our third feature film, Mr. Bleachers, we have 3 more days of principal photography. But as you know, things are a little strange right now, very dangerous as far as getting together with people because of coronavirus. So that's just on hold for who knows how long, but hopefully this summer we'll pick that up and then have another feature film to share with the world. But we're super excited about The Parish. We're very grateful to find a great distribution company and these interviews have been going great. So we're just we're feeling blessed because we're healthy, we're happy, and we're busy. And I've been talking for quite a bit now, so I'm going to pass the mic back to y'all.
Well, that's amazing, but can you tell us something about the parish? Are you allowed to tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. It's a supernatural feature film. So it fits in the horror genre, but it's not like a blood and guts kind of horror movie. It feels a lot like a narrative drama with an added ghost story element. There is an exorcism, so that's kind of an interesting hook when people think of, oh, well, that must be kind of dramatic. Yeah, it is. We have a really dramatic climax, but I was drawn to the story because it examined how humans often struggle when they are confronted by great personal pain, how sometimes we don't tend to deal with these things very well. So what happens in our film is our lead character, Liz Charles, played by my wife, Angela DeMarco, she goes through incredible loss and she tries to run away from her pain. And running away from her pain, she actually comes face to face with an externalized version of her grief in the form of a very wicked, ghostly nun. And she has to battle these external demons while dealing with her own. We're also examining how her relationship with her 13-year-old daughter is affected by all of this. And I'm really proud of the work we did. It was certainly, it was a challenge. There was a lot of times where I was like, why am I doing this? Never again. Hashtag never again producing. But now that we've gotten to this point, now Angela and I are both kind of talking about, well, what's our next one going to be? Because we went through the fire and we, got a few burns, but we're okay. And we're ready to keep going.
Wow, that's amazing. And so is this like so what is it like filming during the pandemic? Or did you try to film it more through like a digital thing like Zoom?
We produced it. We got all of our stuff into the can and filmed before the pandemic.
Oh, that's
so we
good.
haven't. I've been on a few sets during coronavirus. So has Angela, and it certainly is challenging. But if a producer, especially if you're doing a union project like SAG-AFTRA project, there's going to be a lot of rules, regulations. There's going to be a ton of safety, which certainly makes me feel better. And on some of the non-union projects, there's one project early in the pandemic. I got on the phone with the director and we were chatting and I was like, well, how are you going to do this? Because it was last summer, July. I was stressed. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to go on set and maybe get sick. Come on now. It's not worth it for $125 a day. Are you kidding me? So I had a conversation with him and I just didn't get the impression that safety first was his agenda. So I told my agent, I was like, no thanks. It was a cool role too, something I really don't get to do very often as far as the character, but you have to, or at least I feel like, sometimes it's not worth the risk. My health, especially because we're talking about something that I could get coronavirus, have it, not feel any symptoms, but I could give it to somebody else and they could die. I mean, literally. And that's just way too risky and scary. So there's been some projects where I've had to say pass, and then other ones where you take a risk because you have bills to pay, but there are safety things you can do to at least make me feel comfortable enough to go on set. Most of the projects that I've done, I was either like a background actor, so far away from other people, no face-to-face stuff. And then another gig where I was pretty much the only actor on set talking directly to the camera, no close contact, a lot of space, a lot of clean air circulating. So it's certainly been challenging. And I feel like the industry in the Northwest is slower than usual, but we're doing our best.
100%.
Yeah,
Safety and health always comes first. I used to dabble in a lot of background acting when I was in college right before the pandemic. And I think it's difficult to do that, especially during a pandemic like we see now, because they would put a lot of us into a small room. Like sometimes they would put hundreds of actors in such a small space, and clearly you can't do that anymore. And there's definitely a lot of adjustments that have to be made. I think some people that I talked to said that they need COVID tests before coming onto set, right? Is that something that you see in the Northwest too?
Definitely. For the union shoot that I did, I was required to get, I was testing before I arrived, and I had to send proof of a negative test, which makes sense. And then I think every day I was there, I did a rapid test before I left. So the testing is just, it'll help you feel so much more confident about going on set. Like, well, I tested, everybody else is getting tested, everybody else is doing distance work, masks on. And usually, I think the idea generally is actors are often going to be within 6 feet of each other, no masks, but everybody's been tested, so it's kind of as safe as it can be.
Definitely.
That's interesting.
So you've been in the, the acting industry, the entertainment industry, a very creative industry, but I need to ask you, if you're pursuing a different path in your life, what would you be doing and why would you be doing it?
Well, I went to school. I graduated from Seattle University in 2000 with a bachelor's in criminal justice because I thought I was going to go into law enforcement, or it was an idea that I had before I started singing and acting. So I was going to go into law enforcement, or at least I was drawn towards that for, I don't know. I don't know why I was drawn that way necessarily. There's something about, I have some family who've been in the military, not a whole lot, but there was kind of a draw for this idea of camaraderie. I don't know. There was service, protecting other people, fighting evil. Maybe, I don't know. There's something in my head drew me towards either going into the military for structure, because I will tell you, and we can't go down this path because it'll take forever. But when I was a teenager, I was a little bit of a, I had some challenges. I was steering in a few paths that were a little dangerous. So occasionally I was like, well, maybe the military thing will kind of straighten me out, and kind of, it'll give me structure and I'll figure my life out, because there was a time where David was not going on the right path. Anyhow, again, we don't need to go down there too far. Where was I? But when I was in college, I was studying criminal justice, learning about the law. I never really thought about being an attorney for whatever reason, but being a cop intrigued me. But then I joined the Seattle U Choir. I auditioned for a musical. I got cast. I did a few more plays, and I was like, I want to be an actor. This is amazing. I love acting. And so that's after I discovered performance and connecting and storytelling on stage. Then it was from 2000 to 2010, I was just living the life of a Seattle area theater actor who also had a side job of this, that, or the other thing, because, myth busting 101, most actors are not killing it with the money thing, right? Starving artists, that cliche didn't come out of nowhere. Usually we're acting, but we're also holding down some other kind of job. Recently, the only thing recently, and this came a lot out of what happened last summer and George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. And I started thinking about, how can I be a more effective agent for change in the world outside of being an artist? And I started thinking about going into politics somehow, that perhaps being a politician or working with somebody in politics to create change on a larger level. Because I feel like law enforcement, it's a lot of, one-on-one, you're dealing with people. And yes, but also, in case we haven't noticed recently, and I don't know how much you know about Seattle, but I can't go down this road too far, but the SPD, it's got a bit of a reputation. And I was like, maybe being a cop is, obviously I would hope that I would be one of the good guys, but law enforcement has a lot of struggles, a lot of problems, a lot of that I think are deeply rooted in, oh God, I don't want to go. I don't want to go there. So anyway, politician, I thought about that for a little bit. So it's there. So I think that if for some reason all of my little adventures in the artistic world were no longer feeding me, then perhaps I'd think about politics and how I can, but it's such a I know so little about it. My father, who's no longer with us, he was a professor of political science. So, and my uncle, my mom's brother, is also professor of political science. They're both doctors. Um, so maybe that's part of it. So I'd really have to start talking to my uncle though I'd need some support because I wouldn't know where to start.
Have you ever thought about, using your storytelling, using your filmmaking to, tell stories in politics, kind of put the two together?
I've played, I was in a short film called All My Presidents, where I played he's kind of a corrupt politician short film. And I really enjoyed that. And I think that the cliched uh, politician, I think sits well on my personality. So I feel like I could play a politician well. I just need to figure out what kind of story I want to tell. Because we certainly are always trying to generate ideas for new stories, whether they're short films or feature-length films, because being in, like, going back to Seattle being a smaller market, I really believe you have to take your career into your own hands and always be creating and talking about the next thing and developing scripts. So that might actually be where I can explore it and kind of do both things at the same time.
Yeah, it's true. And especially during these COVID times, developing that entrepreneurial spirit of being able to start those projects on your own is super
Yeah.
important. I know that I think back then it was like when you would write a script, you would sort of send it to a studio, they would approve it or not approve it, and then it would, go into production. But these days, a lot of filmmakers are taking scripts into their own hands, making their own movies. They don't
Oh yeah,
necessarily have to go through those distribution outlets anymore. There's so many more outlets that we can now take on our own.
absolutely.
All right, so now we're at the segment of the show we like to call past, present, and future. So we're going to explore three different timelines in your life. So, how do you see yourself now, and how does this compare to the person you were 5 years ago?
5 years ago. That's a good question. Um, yeah, and my wife Angela DeMarco and I think we're in a really good place right now. Outside, if this wasn't COVID crazy, I think that things would feel really good. Obviously, the fact that we are living with coronavirus really, it changes everything. It has changed so much for our education company. It's brought a lot of our education, if not all of it, online. So we used to do in-person classes because being in the studio environment and being able to walk right up to people and connect with them and talk to them, it's obviously ideal. It's a far better way to communicate. But look at what we're doing right now. We're having this interview, we're connecting, we're talking about things. And basically this is how this is what our online learning looks like. It's through Zoom. And so 5 years ago, that was definitely not the case. But 5 years ago, we were discussing, how do we take our education online? How do we do this? And it's been something that I've wanted to do for many, many years, but it actually took basically a shutdown and everybody staying at home for me to actually figure out and have the ability and the time to, like they say, necessity is the mother of invention. I needed to figure out a way with Angela's help to get our training to a virtual platform. Otherwise, it would be very hard to sustain the life that we have. So compared to 5 years ago, I think that the studio is in a better place. We're connecting with more students, which is what we want to do. I think that as an actor, well, let's talk about all the good stuff first. The actor may be in the same place, which isn't bad. My actor life I'm very happy with things. My photography business, my headshot business, it didn't even exist 5 years ago. So as an entrepreneur, which is something that I've mentioning the dog business. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur since then. And even going way back to when I was in college, I helped my friend produce a hip hop album. So I've had this kind of business thing for a while. I don't know where it started, but it's here to stay. But 5 years ago, there was no photography business, and now there is. And I love being a photographer for Northwest Actors. So that's grown. I think that on a spiritual or a personal level, I think 5 years ago, I was in a similar space, and photographer, actor, the actor thing, still good. You know, I think I'm always trying to figure out how to take a step forward as an actor, not only as becoming a better actor, but also as how to become a better business-minded actor. Because at the end of the day, I want to be able to access work in other cities without living there. So I've thought more about that. Like, how do I get representation in Hollywood or Atlanta without actually living there? So that's certainly a thought that it's getting louder now that, you know, every single year, or as time goes by, you do start thinking about the clock. You know, I've been saying recently, I feel like I'm in the middle of my life now. You know, I'm 40 something years old. It's hard. I was born in 74. Okay. I'm not trying to hide my age, but I don't count anymore. All right. So I was born in 74. So this kind of feels like, you know, this is kind of my midpoint. And I'm not like it's now or never kind of guy, but I do want to make sure that I don't rest on my laurels, that I'm always trying to figure out, well, how do I work on the next thing that might not be filming in the Seattle area?
Yeah, that's true. And that's really wise. And I actually have to say, I did not think you were 40 years old. I thought you were actually a lot younger.
You look great.
Well, I don't have children, so that's part of it. I feel like the stress of having kids, and it's, you know, it's not exactly by choice. Angela and I, when we don't want to go down this path, because it's a little bit, it's kind of full of heartbreak, and not that we don't want to talk about those things because they're important and real. But we tried to have a family, and that didn't quite work out. So, but I do think that sometimes, you know, we have a dog, like we love dogs, and our dog is our baby, right? But I can leave my dog at home. Like I could leave, like a little child. You can't like stick your kid in a dresser drawer and like, see ya. Although I have heard stories where that may have happened to a friend or two of mine. Anyway, I digress. There are things about dealing with a human baby that are far more stressful than dealing with an animal. And I realize this, even though my dog is my baby, I know it's not the same thing. So I think part of that is one of the reasons I've retained my youth. I do have some gray in my chin, and I think my parents have always kind of had that young look to them. So genetically, I think I'm in pretty good shape, but you're right. I always tend to, people do think that I'm younger than I am, but that's not always a good thing. I grew up when I was a working man, a young working dude. In my 20s, I always felt like I didn't get respect from older people because they thought I was like a kid, like a teenager. I'm like, I'm a 20-something-year-old man. And like, so I would have to literally, and this is something that actors can think about and that they do, is like, if I dressed a certain way, like if I put on a blazer or something, I might get a little more respect and like, oh, he's a professional because he has a certain kind of look. But yes, it's usually quite an advantage to look younger than you are.
I feel that.
I can relate. People always think I'm 16, but I'm 22.
Right? Yeah, so you know what it's like.
So how do you think things will be for you in 5 years?
Ooh, 5 more years. I'll be in my 50s. So that'll be interesting. I think that, I think my acting career, I think that it'll be further along. I feel like my sweet spot as an actor, or I feel like like getting back to this age thing, I think I'm an older guy in a younger guy's shell. So when I'm a little bit older, I think things will just all kind of line up, and I think I'll have, I just feel like I'll have more opportunities for the roles that I want to create or be in. 5 more years. I mean, I really don't see myself moving out of the entertainment biz, and I feel like every year, Angela and I are very forward thinking. We try to move things ahead. We're trying to grow our brand and our business, but I'm also a little bit aware that I do tend to take on a lot, right? So having a photography business that I try to get out there. We just launched a new podcast, so we're also working on that. So there's a lot of things that I'm juggling, and it could be that, and I've always kind of wondered, and this is actually something somebody told me this or mentioned this when I was in the dog training world, because I was a dog trainer, but I was also an actor. And this particular person was like, you got to pick one. You're going to be a dog trainer. I think that they were wrong, because I don't think there is, everybody's different. Everybody has their own individual mojo and their own individual thing. But occasionally I think about, well, if I was 100% in on my acting, instead of having to juggle all these different things, would my acting career, would my dream be further developed? And I don't know. I mean, that question pops up every now and again, but there's so much that I love about grappling and doing all of these things that it would be hard for me to not be a photographer as well as a teacher and an actor. So in 5 years, I would like to, there is the one kind of big picture goal that's challenging, because it's hard to do this. I would like to have an apartment or something in a different city, whether it's in Atlanta or Hollywood, some large market where I can spend 6 months of the year when the Northwest weather is gross, because we get stretches of just gray and wet and everybody gets a bit dreary. And I would like to just be able to get out of Seattle for 6 months of the year, because I can continue teaching online no matter where I am. I can bring my camera gear with me. I could still do photography in another city, but it would give me access and opportunities to connect and collaborate and inspire other people, while also, being in hopefully a warmer climate.
For sure. So, keeping that in mind, keeping your goals in mind, and, and your journey, everything that you've been through, what would you say are the principles that you live your life by?
Ooh, the principles. This is the one I looked at and I was like, oh my goodness, that's a deep question. Well, part of the thing is trying to figure out sometimes, like, purpose, the whole like, why am I here question that pops up occasionally. And I remember talking to some very spiritual friends because I went to Seattle University, which is a Jesuit institution. So, but I did not grow up with church in my life. There was spirituality in my family and in my home, but I didn't have a relationship with church, right? But going to Seattle University, I met a lot of students who were Catholic and who had grown up with the church. So some of my friends had a much deeper relationship with their own faith and with their version of their God. And so that was always interesting when I had really good friendships. And I remember talking to a friend who I thought was really, really wonderful, and remember I told you that story, like when I was a kid, I kind of was like, this old me, well, he was a little crazy. So I was coming out of that when I was into college and making new relationships and connections with people who were much more just good people, like the people that are meeting, good people. Old David, let's just call him a little bit of I don't want to use foul language, but he had some issues. He had some problems. So I started to meet new people. And one of my friends would tell me, I think the reason we're here is it was all about love, like love, and to be loving and to share love with other people. I was like, I kind of like that. I kind of like the idea that there is something about being on this planet together, because look, there's just so many of us, right? There's so many human beings on this planet. What is the great design? Why are we all here? Well, if we're all here to share love with each other, if we all kind of operated from that essence, it might be a different kind of world. Because some people operate from a place of personal gain, or they need more money, or they need power, they need things. And I'm not saying I don't love things, because I do. I love toys and gear and video games and all kinds of stuff. But I think for me, I try to operate with integrity, and I try to, like, service is important to me, even though a lot of the service that I do is also connected with my own personal aspirations and goals and my need to make an income and provide for myself and my family. So I think a lot of my personal life and the things that I do is also connected to helping other people. And I think that that idea of service, I think that is what is at the center of my life, to be someone of service to other people. And right now, that the other people are usually actors, younger actors who are trying to figure out, how do I do this thing? How do I start? You know, I can help actors who are also already in the game or in the biz, but the younger in age and also younger in experience, those folks are the ones I really love to help and to serve, because it can be very confusing. It can be very confusing. And there's a lot of mythology and misconception about what it means to be in the business. So I love to be a myth buster. In our in our school, my nickname is the principal, because I keep it very real, and I'm like, meh, 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 not all the time. And Angela is Mama DeMarco, because she is, even though I'm talking to you about love and I am loving, she is definitely the caretaker. She is Mama DeMarco, and I think we balance each other very well, where I sometimes tell the cold, hard truths about the biz, and while still being supportive, but we do have our roles. Otherwise, we can't just be the same character in the movie of our lives. Otherwise, it'd be like, wait a minute, there's no contrast. So it's pretty cool.
Cop, bad cop.
Exactly. Yeah, pretty much.
So with all these wonderful things going on in your life, what would you say you're grateful for?
Well, right now it's health, like my health, and especially during coronavirus, being healthy. It's amazing, and I really can't take that for granted. I've always had I've always had a pretty good routine when it comes to my body. Like, I've taken care of my body fairly well. I've always wanted to be a little more fit. I've never had a six pack, but I've always kind of wanted one. But I'm like, I really can't get my nutrition in. I'm just not disciplined enough with the nutrition. But I work with a personal trainer, and we trade. He coaches me on physical training and weightlifting and stretching, and I train him about actor training and all that kind of stuff. So that's a really great relationship there. So I'm grateful to have my health, and to, like, my mom is still in my life. She's healthy. So I'm really grateful for my family. And yeah, I mean, I'm grateful for a lot of things, because, especially when things are dark, and things have been dark for a while, it's really helpful to look at the things that we do have. Like, if we can focus on the positive, because the mind can be a very dangerous and poisonous thing. And I've learned a lot about how the mind can be a helper or a pain in the butt, through not only going through recovery. Like, I had some addiction problems when I was a kid, and I went through 12-step programs and learned a lot about the mind, and they called it stinking thinking. Like, the mind can be very troublesome. And also a really amazing spiritual teaching called The Power of Now, from Eckhart Tolle. It's a really, really fascinating look at how, if you can really just think about what's happening right in this present moment, and even as an actor, having this present moment awareness of just, if you just focus on what's right here, right now, usually things aren't that bad if you can just take 1 second. I mean, in AA, we talk about one day at a time. and in life in general, if you can just take one day at a time instead of thinking about, oh my God, my future is going to be so bleak, or my future is going to be so great, or my past was so bad, or whatever. If you can really just kind of stay focused in the now, sometimes just coming back to your breath, inhale, exhale, just feel that moment. Think about the good things you have going on in your world and in your life. It makes getting through the day a lot easier, because for some people, just getting through the day, like if you just think about letting that thought sit, some people, their version of getting through the day, for me, I think about Seattle, and we have a homelessness crisis, and it's obviously complicated, right? But my version of getting through the day, even when I think about my problems, they're nothing. I am blessed.
Well said.
Cool.
Like, I don't think anyone could have said that better than the way you just phrased it.
Amen.
Good. Yeah, it's like, it makes me a little emotional to think about, how sometimes I've got a lot of stuff going for me. So if you focus on that and don't dwell on whatever, I don't know. My hair. Oh, for me, it's like, oh my, I'm having a bad hair day, because being an actor, you get kind of vain. Like, oh God, I don't look. My pecs aren't. My six. Oh my goodness, I can see I got a little bit of a belly poking out there. It's like, come on, man, just get over it. But in the world of the actor, it's thinking about like the vanity side of things, like those kind of noises in my head. They're there occasionally. I can't pretend they're not, but it's those little voices in my head that I can notice that thought, I can hear that thought, but I don't have to believe it. Just because I have thoughts, they don't have to define me. I can go, oh, okay, that's just my ego going, nah, you should be buffer by now, dude. What's wrong with you? And then my other side, what? Okay, that's there, but I don't have to listen to that voice. I'm going to just come back to my breath and focus on the positive things in my life.
Definitely, 100%. And I follow this person on Instagram. I'm not sure if you know her, the holistic psychologist. And she talks about that thing with, the ego, and how, we can better control it, because the ego is what really messes with our perception of, what our day is going to look like, what will be in a year, things like that. So
Absolutely.
I can relate with that. But now we're up to the part of the show which is very similar to the title, Time Capsule. So I got to ask you, if you were to leave something in a time capsule for people to dig up 100 years later, what would you put in there and why?
Yeah, I think when I was looking at that question, I think what I was thinking about was the idea of legacy. And I don't know if I'm into legacy. I want to help people as much as I can right now while I'm here on this planet. And, but there are so many, like, there are like legitimately amazing. I'm no Mother Teresa, basically. I'm just a guy who's talking to people mostly about how to be better versions of themselves through their work and through their acting and understanding the business. That's my my educator side. And then on my acting side, I want to be an actor as my job, as my career. But if I suppose that I would probably, since I do love creating videos, and I'm assuming in 100 years people will still be watching videos. So I can't imagine. I mean, technology is the thing that changes so rapidly. Who knows? I'd probably create I'd create some videos on some kind of recording device, and then I'd leave that device inside. We'd have to figure out how to keep that battery going for 100 years. But I'd probably create some form of video that was half just goofy, silly things to make people laugh, right? Because I think it's so important to laugh, especially during dark times. And then the other half would be, inspirational, educational things that may not even be relevant in 100 years. But I'd at least want people to see that while I was here, this is kind of what I love to do. I love to make people feel things, whether it's through storytelling because in the Northwest, we have a lot of dramatic movies or horror movies. And I do love comedy though. So if anyone's out there casting a comedy thing, let's talk. But I really like making people feel things. So I would put in some videos of me just being really silly and goofy, trying to make people laugh, and then some stuff to make them think about how they can be better, uh, more able to serve others and put service first instead of self first in their world.
That's awesome. And yeah, especially like when we were talking about before, where the world is, there's so many problems going on in the world. Something as simple as putting a smile on somebody else's face, just for even a brief moment for them to forget about all the problems. It's just so, it's touching. I don't know how to explain that exact feeling, but it's great.
Laughing is the best medicine, right? Laughter is the best medicine. Is
Yeah.
that how they say?
Totally. I agree with that 100%. I think that yeah, if you can laugh, if you can figure out some way to get another person to smile, I mean, it's usually not that hard, right? We're all the same. Like every single person is, you can go anywhere in the world and eventually you're like, yeah, there are some differences, but it's kind of the same. Like family, love, identity, trying to figure out what does it all mean, relationships with higher power, all that stuff. I think it's we're all pretty much the same.
Definitely.
Yeah. So is there any final words that you have for our viewers? Is there any upcoming projects that you want our viewers to know about, to follow up on?
Yeah, I would just say that, if you have the time to look up our movie, it's called The Parish, and connect with us, connect with our business, Mighty Tripod, because right now we're just creating a lot of new content, mostly in the form of a podcast. So we just dropped a video episode. We have 6 episodes of our podcast that have been recorded. So I'm going to publish those pretty soon. So I have interviews with local casting directors, local directors, and just the podcast is all about the industry. So we're just talking about the entertainment biz, and so I'm looking forward to that. So basically, just hook up with us on social media. We are definitely not hiding. You can find David S. Hogan, you can find Angela DeMarco, you can find Mighty Tripod, and you can find not Facebook, you can find The Parish all over the place. So just look us up. We love to connect. We love to just connect with other creative people. And so just find us on social media so we can become more connected.
Amazing.
Awesome. Well, David, thanks so much for being a part of our time capsule. And thank you to our viewers for watching. Please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and make sure to follow all of David's social media channels. Tune in again next week to meet another amazing addition to our time capsule. See ya.